66 back there. We've been going through the Old Testament for about a year and a half, and just started in Genesis going forward, not doing every verse, of course. A lot of, we've been parking in places that isn't often preached. And so I've got one more sermon in Ecclesiastes, I think at 7, that I'm preaching out of these 12 chapters. But this one, and we've been doing that on Wednesday night, but this sermon is kind of the key to the whole book, the key to understanding the book, if you will, because it's a difficult book to understand. It's very different than any other book in the Bible. And so we preached it on Sunday morning to try to tell the people, come back Sunday night. Well, we preach on Wednesday night too, you know, so, but we preached on Sunday morning. But let me say this before we get into this. Ecclesiastes is wisdom literature. It is poetry. It is written by Solomon. Now, and Solomon has two very poetic books, the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs. But the book of Ecclesiastes is called the darkest book in all of the Bible. I mean, if you read this without some understanding, you're going to find it could be very depressing to you. And because the preacher is the main one that speaks in that, but this preacher is more of an observer. He's one who has just observed life under the sun. You could call him the critic. And so he's reporting about life under the sun, our life. Look with me here in chapter 3. We're going to read verses 1 through 15. To everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it, or laboring in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it, that men should fear before him. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. And God requireth that which is past. Have you ever just asked yourself, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of my life? You ever just get discouraged in life? Alexander the Great conquered the world faster than any man ever did. And before he died, he came under a huge depression because he had no new worlds to conquer. Solomon tells us a few things in this book. He says life is vanity. Vanity, vanity, vanity. All over this book it says life is vanity. The literal translation of that word vanity would be smoke. You see smoke? Can you hold on to it? No. It shifts. Life is vanity and vexation of spirit. Now, the word spirit is often translated wind, and vexation of spirit. Let me give you another rendering. Life is chasing the wind. Life is smoke and chasing the wind. Now, I told you, I've got to get you to the dark place of Solomon before you can understand what he is saying. Solomon wrote Proverbs telling us that we need to seek after wisdom. And if we seek after wisdom and we do the right things, good things will happen. Proverbs is not law, but Proverbs is probabilities. It is if this will happen most of the time. The way I usually explain it is like this. If you sow seed, you're going to reap a harvest. But not always. Sometimes the wind takes it, or the storms, or floods, or drought. But I guarantee you this, if you don't sow seed, you'll never reap a harvest. So Proverbs is Solomon as a young man. Ecclesiastes might be his greatest work, actually. Look with me, he tells us to seek wisdom, but look with me in chapter 1, verse 17. He said, I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. What's that mean? He gave his heart to know wisdom, madness, and folly. Let me say it like this. I gave my heart to know wisdom and I found madness and folly. That was the result. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit, or chasing the wind. For in much wisdom is much grief. And he that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow. Let me tell you something. The more you understand the world through the biblical perspective, you're not going to get as shiny and bright a day as you think you're going to get. Skip over with me to chapter 2, verse 9. So Solomon says wisdom didn't satisfy me, it's vexation. Chapter 2, verse 9, I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remaineth with me. Now, if you look at all this, he talks about a lot of things that he sought after. And some people say, well, that was sinful. But he keeps saying this, my wisdom remains. I didn't do it sinfully. I did it within legal bounds. Okay? But look now, verse 10. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do. Behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there is no profit under the sun. I sought after wisdom and knowledge. It made me miserable. I labored more abundantly, was more wise and increased, and had every pleasure the world could tell you about in verse 2. But this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Skip down with me to verse 17. This is where it brought you. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit, all smoke and chasing the wind. Don't worry, we'll get to, we got to go to the dark side before you can see what Solomon is saying. Look at verse 24 of chapter 2. Then there is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor, and I saw it was from the hand of God. What is he saying here? It's not the riches, it's God that gives the enjoyment to what we have. And then I am going to you can read verse 25, but I'm going to give you my literal translation. Who can eat and who can enjoy life apart from him? All the pleasures of life without him only brings misery. That's where Solomon's at this point. All the pleasures of life without Christ only brings misery. You remember the show, the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robbie Leach? You know, over 3/4 of those people were hospitalized in some way for clinical depression. In chapter 3, there is one verse that unfolds a whole book, and actually, believe it or not, this one verse has more books written about it than any other one verse in the Bible. There's one verse in here that unfolds it all, but we got a little bit of a language barrier. I'll deal with it here in just a moment of this one verse. Jonathan Edwards, the great scholar, G.K. Chesterton, C.S. Lewis, John Piper, J.R. Tolkien, their whole ministries are kind of based on this one thought. The teaching of this verse started up, there was a group in the 1820s that has coined a German group called Zanzuk. And let's get to what it is. Look with me here now. We're in chapter 3, verse 11. This will be how we split up the whole thing tonight. Chapter 3, verse 11. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. That'll be verses 1 through 9. He hath set the world in their heart. Now, the word world here is found as translated world, but it's also translated evermore, forever, everlasting, or eternity. So let me read it as I believe it's best. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set eternity in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. Jonathan Edwards, of course, the former president of Yale, said of this verse, there is an eternal shape vacuum in the heart of every man that only Christ and eternity can fill. C.S. Lewis said that this verse was the backbone of all of his writings, and his most famous phrase when he's got a sermon called The Longing, his most famous phrase is, if we, speaking of this verse, if we find in ourselves a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, it is most probably explained is that we were created for another world. The emptiness and nothingness that nothing in this world can fill in man, why they can't find satisfaction in learning, they can't find he goes through all these things that are good things. Learning the word, being knowledgeable, having a career, building, pleasure, family, a marital relationship. He deals with everything under the sun. And everything under the sun without Christ is vanity and vexation of spirit. This breaks down into three aspects, as we said. First of all, in verses 1 through 11, eternal creatures trapped in time. God hath set eternity in our hearts. Now, we can go through this. Everything is beautiful in his time. Verse 1, to everything there is a purpose under heaven. Now, we know this is a very popular part. It's made popular by the birds, not the ones in the trees, but the ones that sing. And a lot of people know about this. It's probably one of the more popular things, and a lot of us key in on, and I can go back and forth between there's a time to weep and a time to, and back and forth and back and forth. But let's not get caught down into the trees. What's he saying here? For every good thing in your life, there's a bad thing. You know, I happened to do some stuff and I lost my Social Security card. I got my birth certificate. Now, my mama got that originally, and then she gave it to me. I got my birth certificate. One day my daughter will get my death certificate. For every good thing in this life, there's a bad thing. Life is going from one good thing to one bad thing. They're necessary things, but they are still as we go. Born on time, and we'll die on time. Verse 9 tells us, what profit hath he that worketh in wherein he laboreth? Where's the profit? It never seems to end. Verse 10, I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. What does that mean, to be exercised in it? There's an old saying that if you've ever been around wrestling, you call, I'm going to stretch him. And this word here is, his life is stretching me. I mean, he'd put me in a rack. We get up in the morning. The alarm clock goes. We got so many minutes to get the coffee, get whatever we get in our little routine. We get in our car. We go to work. We do that performance. We come home. In our younger years, we play with the kids a little bit, maybe watch TV a little bit, enjoy that a little bit, and then it's off to sleep and it starts all over again. There is a stretching or a labor or a torment, if you will, in the randomness, in just the routine. We call it the grind today, getting in the grind. But yet God has a purpose as we go through the grind. And that's where we come to the main point of verse 11. The main point of this whole book is in this phrase, he hath set eternity in our hearts. Now, many may preach that it's sinful to seek pleasure. I heard that my whole life. Well, that's not the sin. The sin is that we're too easily satisfied. When we were lost, we were satisfied by the pleasures of the flesh, and we sought after that. I've used this illustration at this church. Some of y'all are going to remember it. I have to have used it when I was here for 3 years, 100+ times. And it is right in the center of that sermon that I talked about the longing. The little boy in the ghetto is playing in his mud puddle, making his mud pies, and a couple comes along and invites him to the ocean. And his family is letting them take this young boy to the ocean. And yet this boy thought that they were trying to steal, because he's never been to the ocean. He's never seen the ocean. He can't conceive the ocean. He just sees them as trying to rob him of his joy in his back alley mud puddle. And it's not pleasure is the problem. The problem is we're satisfied with the back alley ghetto mud puddles when God's got joy for us. And if we go into the cycle of trying to get pleasure and enjoyment out of everything in life, there's no man with more excess than Solomon. There's no man with more wisdom than Solomon. There's no man with more success than Solomon. There's no man with more riches than Solomon. I mean, Solomon is at the peak, and he said, I look out at life and it's all vanity. I mean, what is it for? Well, the answer is God has set eternity in our hearts. And we have to know. So we go through this stage of life as Christians. And I'm going to kind of give you an overview of this book right here in this little analogy that I'm going to give. We once, at some point, were satisfied with the sins of the flesh. Then the Lord saves us. And he saves us. And we go to church. Now, many of you are like me. You grew up where there wasn't a question if you were going to church. You were going to church. And there wasn't a question if you pray before you ate. You pray before you ate. And so we had this routine in our life. Solomon was the same way. And so he gets older, and then he has the routine, but then he also has the sins of the flesh. Well, at some point, Solomon gets sold out to the wisdom of the Lord and the blessings of the Lord. And so as he's young, in his younger years, he's finding blessings in the Lord. Nothing wrong with that. And he writes Proverbs and tells you, if you do this, you'll be blessed. And if you do this, you'll be blessed. And so now he's reaping the blessings that God has given him. It's a stage in his life. But then he comes to the point one day where he finds out that, you know what's more blessed than the blessings? The presence of the blesser, Christ. And so he starts practicing the presence of Christ. And just, Lord, come and be with me. And it's just great to have the presence of the Lord. Better than the blessings and all these things. Just to have the presence of the Lord with you. But you know what happens when you get the presence of the Lord? It doesn't satisfy. Now listen to me. It doesn't satisfy. You know why? Because we're eternal creatures trapped in time and in flesh. And so as we are these eternal creatures trapped in time, we have to have more of him and more of the Lord and more of the Lord. And this longing starts. These things no longer satisfies us. And then we come to the place like Abraham where we start looking for a city whose builder and maker is God. Then we come to a place, as we've come through life, we love the blessings of the Lord. Then we found the blessing of the presence of the Lord. And the more we have the blessing of the presence of the Lord, the more we find ourselves longing for another home. Longing for a land that is fairer than day. Longing for a home that we have not yet seen. Because eternity is in our heart. And time and age and circumstance is not going to satisfy us until we wait in his beautiful presence. And as we get older and we feel more of the presence of the Lord, we want more of the presence of the Lord. And we finally really understand that song. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. My treasure's laid up somewhere beyond the blue. And the angels beckon me from heaven's open door. And I just don't feel at home in this world anymore. Solomon looks back at life and he says the things that I put all the importance on, they're vanity, vexation of spirit. Without the Lord, who can enjoy these things? But then once I start enjoying the Lord himself, I find out that I just want to be with him because he's got this eternal shaped vacuum in my heart. We figure out, as Lewis wrote, we were created for another world. Solomon's not depressed. He's telling us in the book of Ecclesiastes, enjoy it in the moment. Enjoy your bread today. You're not promised tomorrow. Enjoy your bread today. Enjoy your loved ones today. Enjoy the space of life you're in today. Enjoy the season you're in today. Whether you're young or old, enjoy your season of life today. Take your bread with gladness. But what makes a man's happiness in his meal isn't the meal, it's the presence of the Lord. And the more we have the presence of the Lord, the more we long for the presence of the Lord. And then once we figure out that we're created for eternity, not for time, we start seeing our life through eternal lenses. Now he shifts in verse 11. So that, because eternity is in our hearts, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I no longer have to ask the Lord why. I just trust him. The Lord knows why. He knows the end of the matter before it starts. Why did this happen? This is a book for living. This is talking about life under the sun. Why did this happen? You've been at it any time. Life's kicked you, and it's kicked you hard. We find out that the Lord, look at verse 12. I know that there is no good in them. No good in what? In the things of life without the Lord. But for a man to rejoice and do good in his life, just do good. Just continue to do good. And every man. Now, hold on just a second. I got to do something right here. It's not easy to detect, but if you don't believe it, don't believe it. But the critic is speaking. Now the critical preacher is speaking. So let me tell you how I believe this verse ought to be read. Verse 13. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. It's the gift of God. You tell me the gift of God is just to eat, drink, and be merry? You tell me the gift of God is just to enjoy, just to live for the moment? You're telling me the gift of God is just based on, whoever gets the most toys wins? Whoever drives the most, God's blessing me with that. Well, we thank God for his material blessings. But you're telling me, yes, they are the gift of God. But he's dropping this into an eternal perspective here. And now verse 14, he explains it. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. We're not living life for the daily pleasure. We're living life for eternity. Nothing can be put to it. Now, you can't add to what God's doing. Now, we try to. That's why there's so much false religion in the world. We try to put our hand to what we try to add to what God is doing. You can't add to what God is doing. You can't take away from what God is doing. Can't put anything, nor anything taken from it. Can't take from God's plan. It's God's plan. Now, you've got to fall in love with the presence of the Lord to swallow that. Because if you're still living that if I do this, God's going to give me that. If you still got a vending machine God that you throw in a prayer or good work and pop it open and you're going to get a blessing, and that's what life's all about, then you ain't where Solomon is in this book. The richest man, the wisest man, one of the great kings of Israel said all this stuff is vanity without the Lord. Even the good stuff is vanity without the Lord. How many religious people out there? Every now and then I'll hear different people that are doing different things, and we judge. So I don't name names or say to other people, it's in my own thing. I go, they're putting on a performance. It's all about me. It's all about being seen, all about being heard. Well, Jesus said they have their reward. They have their reward. Our reward's in heaven. And so we start seeing life as it is, and giving and doing the life as it is. God's blessed us. All of us in here. The poorest one in here is wealthy to the world's standards. Where's the fish bowl? Y'all still do the fish bowl? Oh, you got a box now. Okay. Well, we got a little box. I started that down there. Everything. Training the kids, giving our money to missions. This church and church I pastor, we support Brother Manasseh Wakawa. I ran into a preacher the other day, never met him before in my life, from Nigeria, pastoring over in the United States, and I said, "You know Brother Manasseh Wakawa?" He said, "Do you know Donald Trump?" He said, "I voted for Manasseh Wakawa to be president." And he said, "Didn't the Muslims kill him?" I said, "No, he's in Sierra Leone bringing revival." Understand, our money has eternal significance. When we give to the Lord, we give to missions. What we do has eternal significance. When we help someone out, encourage them. I was in a hospital room today with somebody that they really needed encouragement. I ain't going into all that, but I was definitely, life's filled with a bunch of hurting people. And you got a choice in life. You can either figure out what God is in it and say by the grace of God, He's done this for a reason and there's a purpose behind it and I don't understand it, but I'm going to keep doing good in life. My reward isn't whether I eat hamburger helper or steak at the end of the day. My reward isn't based on how I can brag about my knowledge at the end of the day. God has uniquely gifted every one of you to be light and salt in where you're at and to have an influence for Him. Live for eternity. And then let God do the rest. He goes on. Verse 14. Nor any take from it, and God doeth it, that men should fear before Him. Y'all don't be afraid of the Lord. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. But now love is the graduated class. Sometimes we do what we do out of responsibility. I like what C.S. Lewis said. He said, at times, we perform the Christian life out of responsibility or discipline or character. And that's good. All of us do it. And it's like a crutch to get us through a hard time. But if you're doing that all the time, you're a spiritual cripple. Because we ought to be serving Him out of a heart of love. And to know Him is to love Him. And to know Him is to fear Him. You don't go into His presence and always come out feeling love. Sometimes you come out of His presence feeling fear. That which hath been is now. What was before me is working it up to now. None of us are an island. None of us stand alone. We all stand on the shoulders of others. And mainly the Lord. And that which is to be hath already been. He's showing God's eternity. Don't try. You're trying to figure out an eternal God. and basing it on blessings of life and basing it on satisfactory things, you cannot do that. You will walk away like him going, vanity, vexation. And God requireth that which is past. Let's have an eternal perspective on life. We all get down. We all get down and discouraged. A lot of things that I found that through the years that I thought really mattered really don't. They really don't. We argue. I do. I argue with a fence post if it. We argue, we fuss, we fight, we assert our opinions, and our insecurity screams out. Your opinions really don't matter. It's what God's doing. Get in on what God's doing. Have an eternal mind. That's, nothing worked out the way I planned it. Well, why? Quit planning it and give it to God and live your life and say, he's got me where I'm at, doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to spend time with him, and I'm looking forward to the eternal day. Further along, we'll understand all about it. Further along, so cheer up, my brother. Live in the sunshine. We just got a few more days to labor. You're created for eternity. If you're saved, God's got an eternal purpose on your life. We all go through heartache, disappointments, things that we thought was going to work. Ecclesiastes explains to us those godly parents that you know, or maybe you're there, whose kid has just gone as far out as they could go. I won't mention his name, but one of the great famous preachers of the last generation, pastor one of the biggest churches in America, got up before a crowd of about 5,000 preachers to hear him preach. And he wept for 40 minutes because he found out that his daughter was prostituting herself. Now, we got stories out there of good, godly people. Life just didn't work out. The proverb said, if I train them in the way they go, they won't depart. That don't guarantee every child. Neither does putting seed in the ground guarantee every crop. God's working out eternity. Just leave and trust and believe in him. There's a lot of things we don't know, but God knows them. God understands. The blessings of God will never satisfy the heart of Christians. Only Christ will. Moses was out, the Lord told Moses, he said, I'll let you go, I'll continue to bless you, but I'm not going with you. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, Moses said, leave the blessings behind. We want you. We want your presence. And the more of Christ we have, the more we long for. That's life under the sun. All is vanity, smoke, chasing wind. But with God and Christ is the only thing that'll satisfy. Even the longing of Christians' hearts. We try to fill the longing for Jesus with work for Jesus and not just the presence of him. Brother Philip, you come.